Hello and welcome to episode 13 of Let's Grill John. My name's Phil Makepeace. This is John Mackenzie. John Mackenzie, how are we?
Yeah, good. The sun has come out. I will go out for my daily constitutional after this lesson and have a listen to a podcast or two wandering around the South Cheshire countryside.
Yeah, must be different up there because it's grim here. I'm in the south of England and it's brightening up, but it just still feels like it's October. It's that kind of damp, bleh, and then
It's grim down south, Phil.
it's grim
It's
down. It
grim.
is. Yeah, I suppose it's been. Uh, the South has been owed a grim period, I would suggest.
Mm.
After decades of, I read North and South for A level, and it made it sort of, these old mining towns made it sound like sort of just the very fabric of the countryside up there was dripping in soot. But anyway,
Bit less soot now, but yeah,
less soot.
still very drippy.
Okay, right. Anyway, today we are going to do some tic-tacs, some tactics on various bits and pieces, and sort of go through some positions, analyse them, work out what's best, work out what's possible, and do it from both sides as well. So in some cases you'll be defending or working out what's best to do to not make things worse, perhaps, and in some positions you will be working out what to do in an attacking sense. So this first one, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 squares where this king can go to. You're struggling. You're a piece and a pawn down, but in this position there is a swift end for black, as in white can then punish you, and there are some ways of just making life slightly awkward for your opponent, which is what we want to do, especially when we're material behind. So talk to me, what is your first kind of thoughts here?
So you're down a knight, and actually the knight is a little bit trapped in this situation.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like, so you could easily keep the knight there. The only way you can get out of the back rank really is by going to d7, and if you do that you can fork it with the king, so with your rook, which is quite nice.
Okay.
Other than that, there's a fairly imposing wall of pawns on the second rank, which I guess you're going to have to try and break down somehow if you're to promote. And then I guess the other two pawns are sort of facing each other off, and it would seem as though it would be pretty easy for white to sort of pick those pawns off, given the pieces available.
Okay, so we've established that if the king goes to either g7 or f7, then what has to happen here? Because as you say, knight d7 gets met by this, so what has white got to play here?
The rook has to go back to the 8th rank.
Yeah, so white is doing absolutely fine here, they're still winning, but there's no immediate thing, and you've just been a bit awkward here. Now, but there is one principle here which, if you're trying to get some activity to try and fight back, what about the king? What generally, let's say the principle here, what is the principle? With the king in an endgame.
I guess you want to sort of keep it defended.
Not necessarily. In the endgame, you want it to be more active. But so, which direction should the king generally be going?
Well, you want to sort of march your pawns forward, I would suspect. So I would suggest you probably want to go down the board with those pawns and try and get some counterplay.
Okay, so where does the king want to go if you're going to go that direction?
Well, if you go to g5, you're going to be met by knight to h7, or at some point, presumably.
Okay, so we're worried about this. Okay, maybe. I think that knight h7 just gets met with king g6, and then the knight has to escape, and we're back where we started.
Yeah.
So is there? And the point here is that white has a better move. So can you see anything really dangerous here for white? And this is the idea, the whole point of the position.
Yeah, you can fork those two pieces with a pawn.
Okay, so f4, king takes, and then...
You can fork them with the knight
Yeah, here we
on
go.
g6.
So the reason why this is not a good idea generally. Okay, you're not in the way of the pawns, which is helpful, but what you have done is you've put the king and the rook on the same colour. Not only are they on the same colour, but they're 2 squares apart. This is the configuration which is most prone to being forked. You can have literally, imagine these were 2 knights. You could have literally any piece doing a fork. I mean, 2 knights, I guess a knight wouldn't be able to, but you know, are there any 2 pieces? Let's say forget a knight, but because knights doing forks of 1 knight or 2 is not going to work. But yeah, a knight would be able to do it here, a pawn here. If it was protected, a bishop here.
Wouldn't be able to.
Queen.
Oh yeah, you could. Yeah.
If it was 2 other pieces, I mean, basically you can't, as I said, you can't fork the same piece. But if this was, say, like a king and a queen, you could have a rook here. If it was 2 knights, you could have a king here. This is the biggest, the most prone configuration. And yeah, you might think, oh, okay, I can just take this, but then you are going to get forked this way instead. So generally, you want to avoid putting your king on the same colour or 2 squares away from rooks and queens, because that is the way that forks lie. So here, yeah, king f7 or king g7 is a bit awkward. King f5 isn't great, but it's going in the right direction if you're going to try and make something happen. But yeah, the point is here that king g5 leads to an immediate end to the game. So we're going to go through some more where we deal with different kind of things. So that was an end game. This is now a middle game. Black to play and win.
So just initially, it looks like you want to try and isolate the bishop on the back rank, and then get the king trapped behind those pawns if possible, or at least block his escape.
Okay, what do you notice from a tactical perspective though, rather than you're playing a bit positionally? We're going to be crude in this stream. I've just cut my hair, so I'm feeling kind of like I want to do big. You can't see this, but I'm doing like big wuzzes up the side of my head, where it's all cropped. It's a nice feeling.
What do you mean by tactically? Just in terms of like immediate moves that you can do?
Yeah, where pieces are. So the same kind of thing as last time. We're looking for ways to take advantage of the configuration of white's pieces.
So you've got the knight is able to get the king in check.
Okay.
The bishop is able to then hop into f4 if it wants to,
what would be the
protected by the knight.
Okay, so the idea is to fork these guys.
Yeah, but with the knight, obviously with the knight moved first, you'll be able to do that. The queen can get onto the back rank very easily, and could just sit on e1 without being dislodged particularly easily. But I guess you're at the risk of having the same thing happen with
okay, so
your
let's go
king.
through a line. Let's go through a line here. What would you like to do?
So let's do knight d3 first.
Okay, I'll go here.
Yeah, then I guess you can put pressure on the queen with...
Okay, what have you done? What have you allowed here for white?
Tempo.
You've not just allowed tempo, you've allowed tempo with moving the king onto the opposite colour, on the opposite, and obviously therefore a completely different diagonal to where the threat existed before. So, why were you rejecting this move? And this is the point. This is where the biggest learning point is going to come today. Why did you reject this move?
Just because it's going to get taken, but obviously I can fork the
okay. The biggest
2 pieces.
Biggest gap, the times when the gap between 2 players is the most evident, is that ability to see one ply further, one move further. I had a game against Yahongir Vakidov, who is, I think, something like the Uzbekistan #1. But he was playing for Hendon in the London League, the Middlesex League, and we were on board 1, and it was just pretty disgusting. It was like world number 150 or something. And I was doing okay, and then we went down this big tactical variation, something like 13 or 14 moves. And he'd just seen one move further, and I ended up just losing very quickly after that. But it applies in these ones as well, where it's just 2 or 3 moves, where you see the queen and the king are on the same diagonal. You have a piece that moves down that diagonal. The biggest mistake you can do in any position when you're trying to make something happen is to give up. Bishop f4, you go, right, okay, the queen can take it. But then you haven't asked yourself, what now? Is there a thing I can do now? And 95% of the time, there won't be. But those times when there are, that's when these kind of things happen. And the reason this should be in your mind is that you're going, right, I want to go knight d3 in order to do this. But if you just flip the moves,
reverse the logic,
then you're doing things in a forcing way. You get doing the forcing move, what looks like the forcing move first, and then you're tidying it up later, and you've got this. But so if you've got an idea that just doesn't quite work like in your first try, where now there's no check with bishop f4, where it only looks at the queen and not at the king, just flip it. So we do this, queen takes, and knight fork. But yeah, the way that you're going to be able to do this from a practical point of view is just by following these sort of wishful thinking, like playing devil's advocate almost, and just going, right, what happens if I do this first? And then following it. So queen takes, oh, then I've got the knight fork. But you're not going to do that. You're not going to have this if you don't follow the lines all the way to the end. If you just assume that the queen can take the bishop and then that's it. Okay? So
I'm really bad with knights anyway. I find them really hard to see the logic. I don't naturally see where the knight is going to go and what it affects. So it's something I need to work on.
Okay, yeah. Then you can... the best way to do that probably is to get a knight on an empty board and try to do, the thing where it then visits all the squares.
Yeah.
Do that as much as you can. Basically, have a board where, I don't know, you've just got like loads of bits of scraps of paper or something on a normal board, or some way of marking the squares, and just do it so that you're going move the knight and then you cover the square it's just been on, and then you keep doing that. But then eventually you'll have this thing where there'll be only a certain amount of squares on the board that don't have paper on them or whatever you're using to mark, and trying to plot a route so that you can cover as many of them as possible. It's a really good training exercise to get knight tours in your head and sort of practiced. Okay, good. Right, so that's one thing. Now let's keep going. Right, again we've got a little tactical thing here. White to play. So talk to me about something you just noticed from a tactical point of view and see if we can make something work on top of it.
So you can hop into c4 with your knight because the queens can swap off. No, you're going to lose that anyway. But you could also pin the knight to the king if you wanted with the bishop on f1.
Okay, let's start with things that are already on the board. What tactical kind of things are already on the board right now?
So the bishop is pinning the knight to the queen.
Okay, right. Here is your tactical thing. You've got this pin. Now, what do we do with pinned pieces?
Attack them.
We put pressure on them. So again, we're going to go down a line here of just trying to make something happen. Pinned pieces are even worse when they are only protected by pieces rather than pawns. If this pawn was still here on g7, then black would be absolutely fine and there wouldn't really be any worries. But the fact that this square is also an outpost means that not only is the queen tied to the defense of the knight, but it can't really, the knight can't move. So neither of these pieces are in really good shape here. So the fact that this is 1 versus 1 is good news for anything you want to try.
Just trying to work out.
So you want to put pressure on that knight. We like to put pressure on pinned pieces.
Yeah. So I guess the queen to f3.
Okay, then what would black do?
Probably push the pawn.
Well, no, because it's an attack, remember? So they've got to deal with it.
Probably drop the bishop in.
Yeah, so queen f3,
e7.
bishop e7. The pin is broken. This bishop's now in the way of the pin. And the bishop also defends the knight. And black is doing quite well here now. This knight is free to move. They've got this good center. The queen's kind of in the way of this knight as well, or this knight coming out. So this is a way to put pressure on it, but we have another way that works.
If you keep in that configuration. Now if you move your knight to c4,
and I'll take you.
Oh yeah, I don't know what I was thinking about there. Yeah, no, ignore that. Well, I was gonna maybe I was thinking like trying to move the queen, and if you then move the rook across, if you take that, and then you move the rook across.
Where's the black queen go?
It'll have to go on that diagonal.
Bizarrely, black actually has bishop g4 here, which is a sexy move. Rook takes queen, rook takes, queen moves out of the way, and then rook d1 mate.
Yeah, okay.
But I think queen c7 is also probably, or maybe not. No, because then you're right.
Because then you can
take this.
If you force the queen across.
What if I go bishop d7?
Then you've got. I mean, I guess you could sacrifice. You already sacrificed a piece, so it's probably not worth it.
If you don't sacrifice this, I can probably just take with a knight. It's a nice try. I like what you're trying to do there. So John was trying to distract the queen off this diagonal so that this piece could then be taken. It was a nice idea. I think black just has bishop d7. I mean, bishop g4 is very, very strong, but bishop d7 is probably just a bit more prosaic. But let's go back to return to the initial position. So what other ways do you have of putting pressure on this knight?
Well, you've got the knight on d2.
Okay.
But you're just not going to want to.
Follow the line.
It's just going to get taken.
Follow the line, John. Knight e4.
Oh yeah, I guess it's the same thing, isn't it? It's kind of what I was thinking of before, but without doing the queen move. So you move, if you swap the queens off.
And what is black taking with probably?
King, and then you can fork the rook.
Here we go. Look, knight e4. Big pressure. Pawn takes. Queen takes. If you take with the king in, yeah, absolutely. You win the rook as well. Not only have you got your piece back on f6, but you're going to get that rook as well. And if knight takes, then yeah, bishop takes. Rook moves out of the way, and well, you can just take this pawn, so that you are now a pawn up.
Also force them all back into the back rank, pretty much.
And also after rook g8, there's no way for black to castle kingside anymore. So that's one line. Good. So this is just a case of you want to do something, you've got this pin. You want to put pressure on that knight. You see the queen f3 gets met by bishop e7, and then what? Nothing. Though you actually had a really nice try there with knight c4 and all of those tactics that came about here. However, don't just give up there. You can see, right, okay, knight e4 puts pressure on the knight. That achieves what we want it to do. Okay, the pawn can take it, but then you need to look further. What then? Because these two pieces have suddenly disappeared off the d-file. The d-file is now open. The queen is the only piece defending the knight. Therefore, we can just hoover those off, and this pawn is almost like an added bonus at the end. Good. Right, so we're sort of going through these lines. We're seeing forward 3 or 4 moves at a time. This is good. You're doing well. Right, one more. White to play.
So my initial thinking is just getting the queen on h5 and attacking h7.
Good.
I suspect the response to that's just going to be pushing a pawn.
Which one?
G7 to g6.
I think both are probably fine. Yeah. Either way, that would be blocked, or g6 would block the bishop. One of the two. Okay. Right.
So what I prefer is just taking straight away.
Here we go. This is good. You're now flipping it. You're doing the forcing move first, getting the king out, and then we're going to see what happens. Right. Takes. Queen h5 check. King g8. Now what?
Well, you've got to try and get your knight over onto g5, I guess. Good. So, yeah, knight to f3, I suppose.
If you go knight f3, then I'll probably just play f6. And I'm not sure where your knight, how your knight is getting in, unfortunately.
I just think the rooks aren't going to be any use, so yeah, I guess the forcing move is with the attack on the queen. Oh no, because then you're just going to lose that piece. Oh no, because you can then switch it over with you get the queen. Sorry.
Here we go.
So,
look, John. Yeah.
So D4.
LPDO. What does LPDO stand for?
Los Angeles Police Department.
It does, but also no. Wait, what? Yeah.
Los Angeles.
Loose pieces drop off. Loose pieces drop off. Queen is loose. This pawn is pinned. Pawn pieces that are pinned do not do defensive jobs. This pawn might as well not be looking at either of these squares because this is going to happen. So we can get the knight an alternative way via a forcing move. Knight to e4. If the queen, say, drops back to e7, then this is unstoppable, so queen would have to take, and then we get our queen. Right, what if black plays... Right, black goes, right, okay, you're attacking my queen, I'm going to attack yours. Now what?
You just push it to h6.
But then it's no longer pinned.
Oh, yeah.
Stressing a very juicy checkmate on f6, but no.
I'd just take the queen with the knight, and then take the bishop, and then attack the queen.
Attack
king, sorry.
Yeah, and you get this guy as well.
Then, yeah.
Now, I wouldn't expect you to see all of this.
I already did, Phil. I was just playing the good student.
The point is here that the reason why it's doable and the reason why it's possible is because they're all forcing moves. So you get to, I think it's quite easy to get to this point, right? Where you've done a check. There's only one way. I mean, you could play King H8, but then this is curtains. So you can calculate this, and you can calculate this fairly easily. This is an only move. This is an only move. You can get to here, and you in your head, and you go, right, I need a second piece, as you saw immediately. The only one that's in the game is the knight. Knight f3, yeah, but that's not a forcing move. Pawn here, one of these two is going to be good enough. And then you think, oh, okay, loose piece. And this should have been in your This should be in your thinking at any point in when you're trying to sort of make an attacking plan if you've got one. Loose pieces drop off. That's just for you as well as your opponent. And if you can make something happen against or with a loose piece, then this is why these moves are possible. G6 is a small spanner in the works, but yeah, there's again a very forcing line. Takes.
You can also.
Takes. Yeah.
Sorry, going back to that, can you not just put the king in check with the?
And then what?
And then move your queen to H. Oh no, because then you can just take the.
The problem you've got is that here, I'm not sure this knight's going to be that good there. So something like here and then queen d6. I think this knight is still going to be trapped unless you've got. You might have queen d8 now.
You can also put the.
Your own.
You can also no you can't because the rook's there. Sorry.
But the main, I mean, irrespective of all these lines, the thing that you're never going to give yourself a chance to do any of this in the first place is if you give up at this point and go, right, it's just wish fulfillment. You want a knight on g5, find a way of doing it. And rather than giving up here and going, okay, fine, in this position at the beginning, I'm just going to not risk it and play queen h5. After which f5 is probably quite good, or g6 or f stage 6. Yeah, you're never going to be able to do these fun little lines if you don't then look that one move further. And that's really the whole lesson of today, is just if you're in a position that just looks fun, just follow it to its logical conclusion in your head. And if you can't see anything good, then you scrap it. You scrap that idea, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But those little moments, there's 1 in 20 moments where you can play your knight e4, or you can play your bishop f4. This is where those kind of things really start to come together, and you really have some fun playing these kind of positions. So yeah, just keep looking. That's it. That's my lesson for today. How was that?
Yeah, good.
Okay,
Yeah.
right, lovely. Right, so what we got? We got episode 23. It's just come out on Friday. It's an adult improvement thing, so it's very relevant to this stream and this series of streams. All of the Let's Grill Jons, all 13 now, are on our YouTube channel. In terms of streams, the next one will be on Wednesday evening, where I'm going to do a Blitz album party at about 9:30 in the evening. Anyway, thank you, John.
You're welcome.
Hope Leeds win on Thursday.
No, you don't. Hey, it's a big game for Wickham tonight.
Big game for Wickham tonight. Yeah, we've got our second leg.
Game,
we're only three goals ahead.
Yeah.
We'll see. But thank you for watching, and see you guys again soon.